All right, good afternoon, good rainy afternoon, everyone here on the East Coast. Hopefully it's not raining where you are, Jenna, but welcome. We're so happy to have you today.
Thank you. Great to be here.
All right, so to start us off, can you tell us about yourself and please describe what you studied when you were at University of Maryland and any activities you participated in as a college student?
Sure. Well, so grateful that you all took the time to be here today. I'm Genna Rosenberg. I grew up on the East Coast. I'm a New Yorker, and actually, I grew up in New York and then went to have high school in New Jersey and went to University of Maryland. Um, Started in 91 and graduated in 95. I actually found Maryland because my 10th grade English teacher said, Jenna, you should go into public relations. And I think she noticed something in me, combination of my communication skills, my writing, my personality, I guess, and ability to influence. And I thought it was sounded like a very exciting opportunity, and I found University of Maryland because actually at the time, public relations was part of the journalism program, and it was one of only 10 accredited journalism programs in the country. And I applied, and I got in, and I loved it. So that's how I found myself at University of Maryland. But then when I got there, I I found a new passion along the way when I started to learn about women's studies. And I ended up being part of the very first graduating class that the university offered and I ended up double majoring in journalism with an emphasis in public relations and women's studies. And it was really a formative time for me, or transformative, I guess, where it was very exciting to be right near Washington, D.C. And there was a lot going on with women's rights. We're in a weird twilight zone right now where are sort of championing for some of the same issues that I was back 25 years ago. But it was certainly, for me, it was the first time where I discovered essentially how I could use my voice and my influence to really make an impact, social impact. And that was something that I thought I would end up doing for my career. But my career ended up taking an interesting turn into Toyland, but I still am able to dabble quite a bit into social impact. While I was at Maryland, I did a lot of really fun things. I think it's not there anymore, but I worked at the first coffee house that was in College Park, right on the corner next to the Greek place. Like right before you go up into campus, there was a coffee house there called Planet X. It was a very artsy coffee house, and I was a manager there, and I really, really enjoyed that. And I had a campus radio show there, and I also dated someone who had a campus radio show, the first hip hop radio show there at University of Maryland called the Soul Controller Mix Show. So I spent quite a bit of time at the radio station, and it really was an incredible experience for me being there.
Thanks. And just when's the last time you were able to visit College Park in person?
It's been way too long. I went for an event before I was married, so
Okay.
almost 20 years ago. I
You'll
need to
have
get
to
back.
come back. It's really changed. I'm a local from this area, and it looks nothing like it did even when I was growing up and driving through the area. So you'll
I
have to
bet.
do. So my next question is, how and when did you decide you wanted to go into the toy licensing and entertainment industry?
Great question. So when I graduated from Maryland, at the time, my brother had married a woman from California. And like I said, I'm from New York. So I could have either stayed in Maryland, gone home to New York, or, I decided to come out for an adventure to California. And I thought I'd stay 6 months until his baby was born. And I've never left. So what happened was my very first day that I got to California, I interviewed with a public relations and marketing agency, and it took them 4 months to hire me. Um, I said to myself, oh, well, I could get a job at the California Pizza Kitchen. I'm going to move to California, get a job at the California Pizza Kitchen, and look for a job in PR or social impact. And that's what I did. I got a job at the California Pizza Kitchen as a server. And the very first day, I interviewed for my PR job that I did end up getting. It took them 4 months to hire me. But they did eventually, and it was wonderful. And I ended up, it was a small little boutique PR and marketing agency called Sharp PR. And um, the woman who hired me, she said to me on my first day, oh, did I tell you that I'm 5 months pregnant? And I didn't know that. And we had 7 clients. It was my first job out of school, and it was sink or swim. So we, I had a couple of interns who knew just like this much less than I knew. And, but I did it. And, I guess I just sort of snapped into action. And, one of our clients at the time, one of our earliest clients was actually a licensing agent who hired us to do PR on his deals. So if anyone doesn't know what licensing is, a license is actually an agreement to make consumer products based on a particular brand. So, for example, if you think about all the University of Maryland merchandise in the bookstore, one company might have the rights to make university mugs, and another company might have the t-shirt rights, and another company might make all the personalized stationery or hoodies. And those are all licensing agreements. So if you think about characters ranging from, Star Wars to Pokemon to university to Coca-Cola, it's a huge, giant, multi-billion-dollar industry, the licensing industry. So this licensing agent hired a PR firm to do PR on his deals. And his deals were around toy properties and preschool properties. 2 of them were at the time called the Bananas and Pajamas and the Wiggles, which are 2 very popular, at least the Wiggles are still going strong today. And so we started to do PR on the toy deal that he did with Tomy Japan, Tomy America, their American division, which was their big toy company at the time. And then Tomy loved the attention that we were getting on them. So then they hired us directly to do their PR. And then I read about a company called Jack's Pacific in the newspaper, and they were a fast growing new toy company. And we got them to hire us to do their PR. And we got another company to hire us to do theirs. And so all of a sudden we had 5 or 6 toy companies that were hiring us, and we developed really a concentration and an expertise in the toy industries. That's how I got my first start. And I do quite a bit of work in the licensing industry now as well. And often the licensing industry and the toy industry both straddle on entertainment brands. So if you think about all the brands that, kids love today, whether it be, Minecraft, Disney, Minions, it goes on and on, Jim Henson, back even classic ones. There are so many incredible brands, toy brands that are based on licenses and on the entertainment industry. So it's a really incredible intersection that keeps it fun.
Thank you for breaking it down. I think I understand now. And I may also have a craving for California Pizza Kitchen, but that's a whole
There you go.
Next question I have is, can you please describe your current role as the CEO of Global PR and Marketing at GennComm? And what does a typical day look like?
Sure. Well, we talked about that. I spent a bunch of my career at the beginning, doing public relations and marketing, which is essentially getting the toys in the news, getting masses of people, different consumer groups to know about the products. And I worked at that boutique PR agency for 4 years. Then I left and ended up going in-house to one of those clients, that big fast-growing toy company, Jack's Pacific. So they actually hired me to be their very first in-house communication executive and start their communication department. And I also, at the same time, started their foundation called Jack's Cares. So I really got to sort of fill my personal desire to work on social impact, even though I was working for this toy company. And I'll layer in another concept that I learned on the job, which was corporate social responsibility. So when I was at Maryland, I thought, and I was studying, in the women's studies department, I thought that I would go into nonprofit work. I interned at the National Organization for Women. I interned at another women's organization in Washington, D.C. And but when I got to California, I learned about this concept, corporate social responsibility, and it really resonated with me, which is that there are tons of companies who are really committed to doing good as well. And anyway, so at the toy company, I ended up being able to guide them to all of their publicity. We bought 17 companies while I worked there. And so we really participated in many different categories within the toy industry. So also in the toy industry, there might be dolls or role play or activities or stationery or video games. And there's a ton of those are different categories that there are. And there's also lots of different jobs that there are. So I was doing the publicity and the investor relations. We were a public company, so really working on the finance side of things. And I was orchestrating the company's corporate social responsibility. Well, I loved it. I really did. But after 12 years, I wanted to participate in more different aspects of the industry. So I really felt that I had more to contribute. I was interested in more about developing the product life cycle, looking at the products that the company had done over the years. I felt that I had insights that would, if I had contributed, those insights could have changed the path of the product. So anyway, long story short, now in my business, I have my own company now, all these years later. GennComm is my PR and marketing agency, and GennComm ImaGENNation is my product development and licensing think tank. So on one side, we're doing product PR, getting the toys in the news for companies that hire us to do that. But then I have a totally separate team of people, and we're developing product ideas, product innovations, looking at trends, thinking about materials and needs and solving challenges, and also representing third-party inventors, and we're licensing those ideas. Sometimes you license a brand or a character, or sometimes you license a technology or an innovation, and that can be used in a product line. And so we're doing that now too. So my typical day is I'm working on a lot of different things. Sometimes I'm working on publicity for my wonderful PR clients, and a lot of my PR clients also uh, straddle the social impact space. Like I love working with women entrepreneurs and minority business owners, and I have a lot of incredible clients in that space, and also other toy companies. And so sometimes I'm strategizing on how to create news around all of their, wonderful toys and business initiatives. And other times I'm trying to figure out, which companies would be the best partners for the treasures that we have at GennComm.
Thank you. I appreciate your attempt at summarizing such, so many things. And I love that you worked your name, Jen, into the name of imagination.
Oh,
Very
thank
clever.
you.
Yeah, so I'm gonna ask the next question, but also point out that students that, please drop in your questions. As Kate mentioned, we definitely want to, make use of having this great knowledge bank right here with Genna. So yeah, so my next question is, what are some ways students can prepare for a future career in your industry?
I think one of the messages that I really am focused on getting out is that no matter what you love to do, think about what you love and think about what you're really good at. And there is a job that's doing that in the toy industry. In the United States, the toy industry is a $38 billion industry, and it grew 14% last year. And that's just in the US alone. And there are basically every different job that you can imagine, there's a job doing that in the toy industry. So whether you were interested in legal or accounting or design or communication, social media, engineering, um, business administration, making deals, like whatever it might be, there are definitely psychologists in the toy industry. Mars had asked that question. I mean, if you think about it, there are development experts. There are people who are looking at social trends, who are figuring out, what are people interested in? How the mental health crisis that we're in right now in our country coming out of a pandemic, how is that affecting the toy industry? I actually was predicting at the very beginning of the pandemic, I think that toys, people are missing social connection so much, right? Where everyone was spent a lot of time alone, a lot of time on Zoom. And now I predicted that this would happen, but now we're seeing a lot of toys around hugging. There's a new toy that just launched last week called Hugimals, and it's weighted. It's a weighted stuffed animal that really helps people, self-regulate. Our company is working on other products that are, helping, looking at trends and the intersection of trends and mental health issues, and creating products that are really solving problems and filling voids in people's lives. Did I answer the question?
Yes, I think also maybe if you could speak to, because the question was also about just preparing for a future career in the industry.
Preparing for the future, yeah.
No, you did great, but maybe talk about like what are there internships? Like what are some entry level positions people can get? But you did great too.
Yes, no, I mean, so yeah, number one is I think knowing about the industry, leading with intention, and then, finding companies. There are hundreds and hundreds of companies that are based, I think there is about maybe 900 companies that are part of the Toy Association, which is the US Toy Association, the trade association for the industry. And so there are toy companies in every market, basically across the country. There are many, many internship opportunities. I think, taking classes essentially there are so many different relevant transferable skills also that I think you'd find that the classes that you're already taking will be a great fit to the toy industry. And then it's just thinking about this concept of what do you like and what are you good at, and then finding a niche for that in the toy industry. So, that psychologist one is a great example, but I think that if you look at basically every single department probably within University of Maryland, if you're talking about education, maybe there are educational toys, if it's, STEM toys, doing research for some of those companies, look at who's making the different products. And then, yeah, like reaching out to them and seeing if there are career opportunities within those companies.
All right, I'm going to ask my last question, and then we're going to get to all the questions that are coming through in the chat. So keep them coming. And my last question is, what are the best parts of working in this field, and what are some of the challenges?
Well, there are so many great parts about this industry. I think, for me, it's really, I was named a Genius of Play ambassador by the Toy Association. I think there are so many incredible benefits to play on both children's, adults, families. It really encourages, every life skill that you can imagine, from coping to collaborating to communicating to understanding your self-worth to just really dealing with all of life's challenges. And so I think that there's I think it's a very potentially lucrative field. I think that there are, a lot of career opportunities that people don't know about. This is a fast growing industry. I think one of the benefits also is like how you can really change the world through toys. I don't mean to sound so grandiose, but it's really true. From the products that you create to thinking about sustainability, for our planet, to really, breaking down stereotypes around, race or gender or other things that, have really compartmentalized and marginalized different groups of children as they learn or adults. And they really can, I think if people lead with intention and they want to do great, impactful work and work in a fun industry, there's so much opportunity in the toy industry. Some of the harder parts, I think it's really important, there's a lot of opportunity for inventors. I think one of the challenges is protecting your bright ideas. It's a very competitive space, and sometimes, you need to make sure that you're really protecting your intellectual property if you're coming to the table with inventions and smart ideas. That's something that sometimes people learn the hard way. I think that it's really about, really mining for opportunities and knowing, not knowing or not knowing, right? You don't know what you don't know. And so one of the things that I really want to do is like help storytell to young people about all the opportunities that there are so that they don't miss out.
Thank you. And now I'm going to pass it over to Kate.
All right. Thank you so much, Genna. I've already learned a ton. I've been taking a lot of notes myself. I'm going to get to all the questions. Don't worry. I may take them a bit out of order. The first one, though, I want to ask actually came to me privately, but in terms of places to work, you're in California. Are there kind of hubs where people should be looking, or is with remote work, does it not matter? Kind of what are your thoughts on that?
I think both of those, Kate. I think with remote working, you can be anywhere, and there are people pretty much in every state across the country, and certainly all over the world. But I think there are definitely toy hubs. There are a number of, so there are some of the largest toy companies like Mattel, Hasbro, Jax, Jazzwares. There are interesting toy hubs, certainly in Southern California. There are over 300 toy companies, all the movie studios, all those companies are based here. There are a lot of companies that are based in New York or have offices in New York. Companies like Hasbro are based in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. There are a lot of toy companies, probably half a dozen or more toy companies in South Florida. So that's a really interesting toy area where you have companies like Basic Fun and Jazzwares and Jay at Play and some others. There are a number of toy companies in the Chicago, Wisconsin, Chicago area, and probably everywhere in between. Connecticut, there's a bunch.
Wow. Oh, gosh. All right, great. Thank you. My next question is, have you observed any recent trends in user and or experience design in the toy industry?
Well, let's see. I think yes, although I'm not sure how articulate I am about answering the question, but I think that, definitely I know that there are a lot of people who are working on that space, but I'm not sure. I'm trying to think if I can think of an example of, who is doing that. I can't think off the top of my mind, but yes, for sure. I know that there are people, like there's someone that I worked with at one of the toy companies who has a consulting business who is, certainly working on that.
I guess along with that question, are there certain like industry publications, or how do you stay up to date on changes in the toy industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are a number of industry resources that I religiously read. I happen to have one on my desk. This is called Toys and Family Entertainment, which is one of the trade publications. I have another one somewhere over here called The Toy Book. There is the Licensed Global magazine. So The Toy Book, Licensed Global. There's the Toy Insider. There are a number of licensing trade publications like Licensing Today, Licensing World Today, Toy World. So a lot of these publications, if you go to their websites, they offer free subscriptions, free email blasts. A lot of them are talking about, recent deals that are happening between, Mattel has the new Barbie movie coming out, and, then there's hundreds of companies that are creating product around that, or, when there's new categories, new products that are coming out, there are a lot of awards. And some of these different things could, spark ideas for different product innovations that you might have. There's a next year, I do a lot of work in hip hop actually. I'm working with the Universal Hip Hop Museum that's being built in New York City. I mentioned I had a boyfriend in Maryland who was a hip hop DJ on Friday nights, and that really spurred my interest, and it ignited my interest in hip hop all those years ago. And I do a lot of work in hip hop now. And so in addition to that development work, we're creating a toy line based on hip hop using some plush innovations that we have. So, one of the things that we look to do at our company is sort of connecting dots. And so we talked about this concept of what do you love? What are you really good at? And then where are there opportunities in, sort of the cultural zeitgeist that lend themselves to, whether that's promoting what you have or creating something into that white space.
Perfect. I think that's a segue to this next question. And you've already touched on it, but if there's anything else you want to add, do different game companies have different ideas and strategies? So, I mean, my guess is that they're targeting different segments, but if there's anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, absolutely. They definitely do. And I think someone, when we were talking about like, would a psychologist have a role? Would an educator have a role? I think some toy companies, so some of them are multi-category, meaning they make lots of different types of things. Some of them are multi-brand, but one category. So I was just meeting with a company called ImaGENNation Games, and last week was 2 weeks ago maybe, was a show called the Dallas Fall Toy Preview. And so I was there with some of my clients that I do publicity for, and I was there with one of my clients, the World of EPI, which is a multicultural doll line, won Doll of the Year for their new Black Panther, incredible Black Panther dolls that just launched at retail this weekend in advance of the new movie. So some are making multiple different product categories, like the World of EPI started as a doll company by incredible Dr. Lisa Williams, and now they're moving into a multi-brand, multi-category company where they're introducing art supplies and art and other products. So I was mentioning this game company, ImaGENNation Games. They are a multi-brand company, so they create branded games based on Family Feud and Deal or No Deal, or lots of other ones, but they are a game company. They make games. Other companies like Educational Insights maybe, or Themes and Cosmos. Themes and Cosmos is a science and learning toy company, but they create multiple different products, but they all have a bit of a STEAM or STEM edge to them. So if you are into science or engineering, technology, math, or maybe you're into education and can help them make sure that their learning toys are fitting different, learning criteria, there might be a role doing that for you. So yeah, certain companies and other companies might say, you know what, we're going to chase the money or the opportunity or the trend, or they might have a bigger appetite to, one of the companies I worked for, Jack Specific, they were a multi-brand, multi-category company, so they didn't limit themselves. They had a lot of resources to say, okay, well, we found this incredible technology with this bionic eye. We weren't doing anything in science toys before, but they had a vision of how they can use this technology to catapult them into a new category. and then created brands around it and then expanded that brand into a whole product line. Other companies, like if you go to university game, it's got to be a game or they're not gonna, they're not gonna be interested in that.
So interesting. So I think that kind of ties into this other question. Is there overlap with the market for hobby products, things like Warhammer figurines, model kits, trains, trading card games?
I think it's interesting. Some companies are great at doing, maybe we'll call it smaller, more niche, specialized or hobby type of product lines, whereas other companies, they might focus on selling to mass market retailers, and then it's a whole different level of who's your consumer, how are you reaching them, where are they buying the products. There's a lot of different sales roles, there's a lot of different types of marketing roles, and even product management roles. And I think every company is going to have a different appetite and criteria for what they're looking for and what makes a product line successful. So you might have an action figure or a trading game following, which is very respectable. It might be in the thousands and thousands of people, but if it's not, in the millions of people, like some companies are not going to want to bother with it. Whereas to other companies, that might be really meaningful. I think when I was at Jack's, there was a idea of like, oh, if it's doing less than, $15 million a year in sales, it's going to be too small for them to worry about. Whereas you can imagine, you might have another company who, if it's doing over $1 million in sales, like that would be meaningful for them. If it was doing 15 million in sales, that might be a gold mine for them. And if you're selling online, I think, also the evolution of really mining for customers using like SEO and sophisticated digital marketing methods online versus, you could have a small little toy store in the middle of nowhere, in a small little town. They might be doing a booming online business. And because now we're able to have economies of scale through, e-commerce essentially, that might not have been possible years ago.
So interesting. Okay, shifting gears slightly. How has your background in women's studies and feminism influenced any of your views on the toy industry or your career in general?
Great question. Very much so. That first major company that I worked for, I was, the senior woman in the room most of the time. The toy industry is largely run by older white men. This is not a dig, it's a fact. And I think as you look at with the complexion and the makeup of toys, this is why it's very important to me to make sure that there's representation in every role within the company and at every decision-making table, because I think if we have people who look different and who bring different experiences, we're going to end up with product that is more reflective of the consumers who are going to buy them. I discovered an incredible organization early on in my career called Women in Toys, Licensing, and Entertainment. And I got very involved, and I still am today. Women in Toys, Licensing, and Entertainment, or WIT, actually offers free memberships to students. So if you go to womenintoys.com, there's actually a lot of men who are members as well and participate in the community. But I think, one of the things so I served on the board for 10 years at Women in Toys. I'm on the advisory board, and I do a lot of advocacy work with women inventors, women entrepreneurs, women business owners. There is a incredible collaborative spirit of just helping open doors for each other. And as I mentioned, there's many, many men who are involved in the community as well. But also we provide a lot of programming and information to toy companies to help them understand that they need to be more intentional about, making sure that they're mindful of diversity and inclusion in their hiring practices and, within their teams at every single level.
Perfect. I think that's a good connection to my next question, which is on more on corporate social responsibility we talked about earlier in the panel. We have a lot of students who are interested in that, and I'm wondering if you have any tips for breaking into entry-level roles connected to that.
I love that too. I'm part of a group called Los Angeles Community Leaders here in Southern California, who are all people who are whose main job it is to do corporate social responsibility. Honestly, I think it's knowing about that even existing
Sure.
is a great first step. I think if you have a company that you're interested in working for, contact them and ask them, try to connect with people who it's their whole job to do corporate social responsibility. There are tons of it out there. And I think that they're really looking for creative connectors who are interested in making an impact and helping to change the world. I think, these are a whole entire career of people who their job is based on them forming collaboratives that are going to, satisfy what their respective corporate goals are, but then, really make an impact on society. So I've always really been very interested in this topic, and try to inspire my clients and connections to really think about how they can make an impact with their product lines. Like if you're teaching, if you have a line, there's a really adorable product line created by two of my WIT colleagues, and it's called Walter the Vault. And Walter the Vault is about a bank that talks to kids and teaches them about money. And I've been really encouraging them, like, think about who are the stakeholders that are interested in helping to teach children about financial literacy. Because I think one of my secret weapons is, I think if you can reverse engineer partnerships by thinking about how you can make it a win-win for everybody, then you can really uncover some very interesting potentials for partnerships. So if you think about, who are the companies and people who are interested in teaching kids financial literacy, and you can kind of, again, reverse engineer sort of where might there be funds, where might there be access to customers, and, because sometimes the toy companies may or may not be the most forward thinking. It's a little secret, right? So they might say, well, how commercial is it? Is it based on a licensed brand? But there is if you're a bank, right? Or you're one of the hundreds of banks in America, or you're a company like Goldman Sachs who's interested, who has their small business 10,000 initiative, or you're another type of financial institution or a credit card company. Like, you might be really interested in being a stakeholder who's being one of the first influences to teach children about saving money and earning money, and having them think of you when they're doing that, when they're older.
Yeah, perfect. Another question I got was, I grew up with the movie Big. I'm not sure if other people did too, but what about the role of toy testers? How do you get in on that? And what is
Yes.
that like as a career path?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. I mean, I do a lot of speaking about careers in the toy industry, and I think, is making the toys what everyone should do. But as far as testing the toys, I mean, yeah, there's, you could get into the marketing side of things where you're, or on the product development side, or doing, market research, or leading the market research. So if you're interested in data, or you're interested in, product development testing, here at my team at GennComm ImaGENNation, we're developing product all the time, and we have, our product team, they're making toys over and over and over and perfecting them. And we enlist some of our own kids and neighbors and friends to be testing the toys, because you need to, there's prototyping. So if you're into, activities, or, if you're really, we're creating stuffed animals and plush toys. People are sewing and cut and, cut and sew. And there's a lot of different elements to it. But yes, like there's always opportunities for people who, we have a fun new experiential package that we're introducing. And we've had kids playing with it and testing it out for about 2 years now.
Wow. Oh my gosh. My own children would love that.
Yeah, so there's market research companies,
Mhm.
it depends on how formal, if you wanted to just get in on it for fun, or you want to get in on it for your career,
Mhm.
there's different aspects of it. Like I said, you could be making the prototypes that test out the concepts for the different toys. You could be working for a market research data company that is facilitating groups of people who are testing and, regurgitating back, from like a sociological standpoint, even, or, from an advertising or marketing standpoint, giving feedback on, those toys, the positioning of the toys. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to get in on the fun.
Perfect. Thank you. We had someone ask, what was the name of the company you mentioned that creates STEM and STEAM toys?
There are many different ones, but one of the ones I think I mentioned was Thames and Cosmos. Fat Brain Toys creates STEM
Mhm.
toys. There's a company based out of Beloit, Wisconsin called Play Monster. They have STEM toys. I think I said Learning Resources, or learning, yeah, I think I said Learning Resources or Learning Unlimited. No, not Learning Express. That's a that's a retailer. But yeah, STEM products is a very, very, Brown Toy Box has done some work with GennComm. They are a company founded by an incredible woman, Terry Nichelle Bradley, based out of Atlanta, Black woman-owned business who is really focused on, shining a spotlight on careers in STEM and STEAM to especially give children of color, knowledge about these opportunities to help break down generational poverty, and teach kids, give kids a introduction to exciting, potentially very lucrative careers in STEM.
Wonderful. Yeah, we have some of those brands in my own house. I
Awesome.
recognize those names. Yes. There's another question about kind of over your time in the workplace. How have you seen things change in the toy industry? Is it becoming, in terms of attire that people are wearing? I'm thinking the past couple of years with Zoom, kind of trends you've seen in the workplace itself.
Well, I think definitely, with the pandemic, people are working from anywhere now.
Mhm.
That's definitely a trend, where I think it used to be, people would have to be in an office. There's definitely pros and cons to that too. I mean, we are my company, GennComm, everyone works from home, and, we spend a lot of time on Zoom, but
Mhm.
it's great to be together. That's how, even doing business, it used to all happen at trade shows. I just mentioned I was in Dallas last week at a trade show. It was the first time the industry had really gotten together at a toy fair in 2.5 years. And so I think that, from a practical standpoint, folks have gotten used to selling without, being on a roadshow and having all of their treasures in front of them. But there is something still quite magical about having in-person meetings. I think that, candidly, the work that we've done with women in toys and creating opportunities to especially, shine a spotlight on female creators in the industry, I think has been very eye-opening to a lot of the toy companies who had been getting a lot of inventions from the same group of maybe more established innovators, and they're understanding that a tremendous amount of innovation that comes from actually just opening your doors to other folks. That said, you still, there's a process for getting in front of these toy companies. to make sure that, as I mentioned, you're protecting your intellectual property and they're protecting their interests as well. So usually they don't just let anyone with an idea come and pitch to them. You have to sort of go through the right process.
Makes sense. That was going to be my last question, but there's such a good one in the chat. I want to ask it. Has there been competition between the toy and video game industry? How do those work together or compete?
You know, probably 10 years ago, I think people were really worried, like, oh no, our toys done as kids are spending so much time on screens. And they are. As a mother of a 14-year-old, 13-year-old, and a 9-year-old, I can attest that my kids spend all their time on screens and they play a lot less. However, as I mentioned, the toy industry still continued to grow 14% year over year in the US, and it's growing globally. But I think what we are seeing is influence from social media and from gaming in the form of, integrating those licenses into the toys. So, for example, my son is very into Roblox and Minecraft, and we own pretty much every Roblox and Minecraft toy, that you can imagine.
Same.
Yes, exactly. So I represent Subway Surfers, which is the #1 most downloaded mobile game in the world. And, there are Subway Surfers scooters and Subway Surfer arcade games and, merchandise. So I think that we're definitely seeing, whether it's, games like Fortnite or Angry Birds or, these titles that I just mentioned, Animal Crossing, there's definitely a tremendous influence on the toy industry from the video game industry. But good thing for the toy industry, they go hand in hand.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I'm glad that there can be synergy and not total competition.
Yeah, and I think, everyone, there's a lot of bright minds who are thinking about how do you take digital products and bring them into the physical world. And then in certain instances, the physical products bring them back into the digital world.
Mhm.
And I think that's just a reality of our society today, right? My kids are,
Right.
they're playing on their computer and they have sometimes an iPad. They're on multiple screens, just like I have dual monitors in my cell phone. And, I think, our kids today are incredibly tech savvy. And, but at the end of the day, they still love to, my teenage daughter, she'll, doodle in an adult coloring book and create art, and my son also, they're still like wanting to build Legos and, go outside and play with water balloons or, play with sports toys and things like that.
Absolutely. Good to have a mix of different types of toys and ways to spend their day. Okay, I think that's the last question I have. I'm going to turn it over to Gwen Warman now with the Department of Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies.
Hi, Gwen.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, too much technology in one space. Thank you so much, Genna. It's been great to hear you talk about everything, all this exciting work
Thank
that
you.
you're doing.
I think you came
I
on
just
right
wanted
after I
to,
answered a big
let
question.
people know that if you're interested in learning more about the department, I'm putting some information in the chat and you can always reach out. The Harriet Tubman Department of Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies has a bachelor's and an undergrad certificate in Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies, the broad field. It also has a certificate and a minor in LGBTQ plus studies and a minor in Black women studies. And I think all of those would fit into different aspects of the work that Genna has done, and especially that DEI, corporate social responsibility, all of those buzzwords are definitely present in the world today. So if anyone is interested in learning more about the program and our classes, please check out our website, and I am the advisor, so you can reach out to me. The easiest way is wgss@umd.edu, and I've also put that in the chat. So thank you everyone for being here today. Thank you so much, Genna.
Thank you, Gwen. I was going to say, I think you joined right after I did a whole part about women's studies and the impact that the program had on my life. So maybe you can hear that part in the replay. But I would love to mention, if it's okay, that one of my, obviously I'm very passionate about this topic about introducing people into the toy industry. And my new project that I'm working on is a workforce development program for the industry that helps connect students with apprenticeships. And so I was really inspired that the California Department of Apprenticeship Standards placed 90,000 students last year in apprentices, which is a real job, not just, an internship is a job, but like it's not meant to replace a real position within the company. And so I don't have it completely set up yet, but I am working toward having an official apprenticeship set up with the state of California that would empower students to actually get a job and on-the-job learning with toy companies in Southern California. And so I just wanted to mention that in case anyone finds that interesting. And I think Caroline and Kate were kind enough to offer to do a survey after the class that you guys are going to be receiving. Just if this talk inspired you to think about any of your transferable skills and how they might apply to different roles within the toy industry. And so if anyone wants to reach out to me on LinkedIn, if anyone might be interested in hearing more about that program when I'm ready to promote it for prime time, would love to talk to you all about that. And I had a meeting last week with the Toy Association CEO and the head of the Toy Foundation, and they have an office in Washington, D.C. that does incredible work with like government advocacy around safety and other lobbying work in the Washington, Maryland area. And they're also interested in formalizing an apprenticeship program. So hopefully we can do some great stuff.
Great. Well, thank you, Kate, for asking the questions. Thank you, Gwen, for sharing information and for connecting us to Genna. I do have one more slide to show before we close out. So quickly, what we like to do at the end of all these chats is remind students that we have ebooks and firsthand. We have ones on marketing and branding and imaging and marketing consulting. So you can check that out from your Careers for Terps account. We have other chats throughout this semester, including one coming up for advertising. I thought that tied in well with this chat. You may want to attend that. We also have past recordings available. You can email Kate or I to get access to those. So for example, again, tying into this one, we did one last fall with social justice and advocacy. So you can hear about other positions like that. And you can always make appointments with Kate and I individually one-on-one and find our schedules and Careers for Terps. So again, oh, sorry, I'm not sure if someone was trying to say something. Again, I just want to say, from the bottom of our hearts how much we appreciate Genna giving her time and answering all the questions.
Great, thank you. And if anyone wants to reach me, I think LinkedIn would be a great way to find me, and send me a direct message there and I'll be happy to keep up with replies.
Great, thank you for offering that.
Okay.
You're generous.
Thank you so much, Genna.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. This was really fun. I'm really excited to have had the opportunity here.
Really appreciate you joining us from the West Coast. I guess you have a couple hours left in your day.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Gwen and Kate and Caroline.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.